The fascination with tech, I think, has distracted people from the essence of media and the essence of agencies in many cases, which is people.
Hi, I'm Mercedes Cardona, editor of Velocitize, and we are here for Velocitize Talks. And I am here with Trevor Hardy, CEO of the Future Laboratory. And we are going to talk about the future of media, and it's a very difficult present. So, but you've been in different sides of the industry. You've been with agencies, you've been with media, and now you're a futurist. So I heard that you spoke at a conference recently about the blurring of lines between advertising, media, and branding. And what do you see the future there? Are we going to have to learn to all work together as every side of the industry gets in everybody else's patch, so to speak?
Yeah, and some of that, it's something that we often speak about, and it's mostly one of the narratives that is consumed by the marketing industry, the marketing of marketing. We love to predict our own demise in many ways. And how often have we been talking about over the last number of decades about the death of advertising, or TV advertising is dead, and now the rise of content and many other things. But there's two dynamics at play, it seems to be. The fluid nature of the expertise that it used to be in generations ago, or maybe decades ago, that advertising or communications or content creation or even copywriting or art direction or many of the skills that the media industry or communications industry specializes in have now become the skills that companies also have as well. So it's not the domain only of marketing agencies and media companies. And at the same time, there used to be silos of talent. The media companies and communications firms and marketing services companies used to attract the best talent. But increasingly, the best talent is going away from those industries and finding new homes inside businesses and brands that are bringing some of that talent in-house and attracting some of the most creative, the most talented people. And that is blurring the lines as well, because the specialism to create content, to create media, to create campaigns doesn't necessarily only exist in agencies or consultancies anymore.
In the future, as you are a futurist, is there going to be some technology that you see out here that's going to sort of disrupt the way that the media business is run in the next few years?
And I suppose one of the bigger changes that we see is a fascination with tech, I think, has distracted people from the essence of media and the essence of agencies in many cases, which is people. And I know this is a strange thing to say, but I think one of the most disruptive, innovative things that's going to happen in the years ahead is a refocusing on emotion, on humanity, and maybe stop obsessing about what technology can do in our race in some ways to become faster, better, more efficient, more effective, more analytical, is maybe sucking the humanity and the creativity and the emotion and the imagination and the unexpectedness out of a lot of media and a lot of content, a lot of communications.
So is experience sort of the new marketing now? We keep hearing about this skeptical customer that skips past ads and ignores messages. Are agencies and marketers going to have to refocus on creating experiences to do precisely what you were just talking about, bring back the emotion?
Yeah, maybe. I think we're falling into the same trap. So 15-ish years ago, Pine and Gilmore wrote this book, The Experience Economy, and started to say that people aren't going to be buying stuff, they're going to be buying experiences now. But all of a sudden, we've got the same dynamic existing with experiences. There are pop-ups and installation and immersive events everywhere. And we've got an experience glut to replace what we had with a product glut years ago. And I think what's happening is that many people are just creating theater or stimulation or distraction, but not thinking long and hard enough about what they want people to think or feel, or how people should be changed or transformed as a result of an experience or engagement with their brand. And we're giving labels to it. We're an industry that is just obsessed with coming up with new names for things. And now content is a big focus of an industry that used to be happy to call it advertising or television or an article. And I think that obsession with just finding new labels is distracting us from just creating great stuff.
Well, marketing always seems to be a bit of a buzzword loving industry. and they latch onto something and ride that cycle until they kill it. Yeah. So I'm kind of wondering if that's what's going on with experiences, that we've just reached that point in all trends where it's in supermarkets and drugstores, and then it starts to die.
Yeah. Well, that's the normal cycle of things, that there's early adopters, and then there's the mainstream that accepts something, and then the slow decline into obsolescence. But those guys who wrote the Experience Economy book are now talking more about what they call the transformation economy, which is more about how people are transformed because of an experience should be the focus, rather than just creating an experience. And that, to me, is an interesting new thing, perhaps, that businesses or people in the business of creating content or creating experiences should be obsessing about. Not just the experience itself, but the resultant emotional, psychological, neurological, or behavioral impact of an experience.
Yeah, so we're looking at post-experiential marketing.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a huge interest now in one of the areas that I think is kind of buzzy, but maybe a fad, but maybe really important, is neuroscience, right? The understanding of the subconscious. And we've moved now from an area where it used to be the preserve of science or scientists or psychologists to more mainstream understanding of how the brain works and how sensory stimuli can affect our emotions and affect our decisions. And now, as we get into the business where we don't just become stimulants for people's brain, but stimulants for people's subconscious or their emotion, that opens up a lot more interesting areas for businesses and how they think about content and marketing.
And it also opens up more suspicions, because among the consumers, I mean, you hear them talking about AI and Alexa laughing at them. And there's this undercurrent of suspicion of the new technologies. Is my smart TV going to be recording my conversations? So trust has been a big question about consumers as the technology ramps up. And the skeptical consumer is a big barrier that marketers have to get past. So what can we do to sort of bring back trust? Because as we do more of these things, don't we risk using up the trust that brands have built with consumers?
Yeah. Yes, I mean, that's a huge danger. But there's a contract in place, right? I mean, years ago, Douglas Copeland in a book had said, if you don't pay for the service, you are the service. And we as consumers have a implicit agreement with businesses that if we are using something that is even notionally free, we are going to be giving some value in return. And that's the use of our data or the use of our attention. And the brand is extracting some value or maybe selling our data in return. And that may not be explicit, but we have agreed into that. We have entered into that contract with businesses. Now, the problem becomes, I don't think many businesses, especially the big mega system brands like Google or Facebook or Amazon or Apple or others, have thought long and hard about the long-term impacts of privacy, the trade-offs for freedom, the things we give up in our civil liberties. And they haven't thought about the long-term impacts of that, and we haven't either. And there might be a privacy bump or a blip that comes back to haunt us when we think we didn't really consider all that stuff we were just putting out in the universe and the impact that has on our personal freedoms.
And you, in some of your forecasts, you've talked about this sort of social split between the elites and the rest of the populace, and also about the trust. What that whole debate about privacy and social media and fake news engenders this entire question of trust. Yeah. So what are we going to be able to do to revive public trust in media, in business, in government? I mean, are we going to have to, as you say, pay for the content that is authentic and not fake? Or is there some way to police this infrastructure?
Yeah, this is a killer question, and I don't know the answer to it. But Edelman does that trust barometer every year, which is the most depressing read, I think, every January. But where trust reaches an all-time low in every sector they ever measure. But I think one of the interesting dynamics is that it's not just the concept of trust that now seems to be under scrutiny, but the concept of truth, and what is truth and what is true. And especially in America, there's two realities at play, right? It's very common to see people that firmly believe one truth and other people firmly believe another. And who's to say what's wrong? Because there's so much information out there that confirms the things we think are true. And we're surrounded by things that are through a filter bubble of some sort, a confirmation bias in many ways. So I think the longer term aspect, the solution to that is to almost redefine what it means to be trusted and what truth means in some ways. And there was an old dynamic that said, I'm just going to do things that make you happy, and therefore I'm going to be trusted the next time. But I don't think that same dynamic exists today. And journalism or media in one aspect has I think found its footing in some ways, like great journalism, which isn't about opinion and about theater and about conjecture, but about great research and analysis and great writing, I think is finding a new audience and a new kind of respect. And that craft skill of the essence of journalistic integrity and editorial process, I think could be the beginnings of a new contract, a new dynamic of trust in society.
So that's on the media side, but on the brand side, we've seen a lot of brands sort of embrace purpose and take stands on issues. Delta and the NRA, for example, that's a clear one. And other brands have been a little bit more diffuse about women's empowerment, education, safer types of purposeful stands. But can you be a brand today and not take a stand on issues? Can you remain neutral and still appeal to the customer that's out there more empowered and sadly more polarized?
I think there's a new trend emerging that we've been talking about for a few years now called civic businesses or civic brands, where the purposes of business is not just to make money, but it's also to help enrich its employees, not necessarily financially, but make life better for its communities and its people and its customers, in fact, as well. And now I think there's a dynamic existing where if you are just extracting value and not returning anything to society, then people will see through that. And the levels of transparency, either through media or just through consumer interest in what businesses do, are forcing brands to almost get rid of all the stuff that is bad and evil and only do things that are good. And there's a company called Brandless here, right, that has now taken away everything they call the brand tax, which is all the markup that's required to do stuff that's unnecessary to deliver great price and great product to its consumers.
Thank you so much, Trevor. I'm here with Trevor Hardy, CEO of the Future Laboratory. This is Velocitize Talks, and please follow us on Facebook and Twitter.